Rylan Voss' hands trembled slightly as he gripped the boarding rail of the derelict cargo ship. The vessel hung in the void like a dead fish, its hull scarred with burns and pockmarks. A faint, flickering distress beacon pulsed from the side, weak but persistent. "Why isn't anyone answering?" Rylan muttered under his breath. His voice echoed strangely in his helmet, swallowed by the emptiness of space. He forced himself forward, boots clanging against the metal gangway. Every instinct screamed caution. Something about the silence felt wrong, but curiosity and duty outweighed fear. Rylan was a mechanic, not a soldier. He wasn't supposed to be here. Yet here he was, drawn by a mix of responsibility and something deeper, a gut feeling that he couldn't ignore. The airlock hissed open and a wave of stale, acrid smoke hit him. Rylan coughed, waving his arm to clear it. Sparks danced along exposed wires overhead. The lights flickered then died. Darkness swallowed him. He fumbled for his helmet flashlight, the beam cutting a narrow path through the wrecked corridor. Walls were scorched, panels ripped open, and in the distance, a faint, eerie glow shimmered. Something alive? His pulse jumped. He followed the glow carefully, every step cautious but deliberate. The ship groaned under its own weight, and loose debris skittered across the floor as if warning him away. Then he saw it, a small twisted heap trapped beneath a collapsed support beam. A tiny creature, scales glinting faintly with a bioluminescent blue, twitched. One wing was bent at an impossible angle. Its eyes, wide and intelligent, flickered between fear and pain. A dragon hatchling. In the middle of a human cargo ship. Rylan froze for a heartbeat, disbelief clashing with instinct. The hatchling let out a soft, pitiful cry that tugged at his chest. Without thinking, he dropped to his knees and began levering the metal beam with a crowbar. Sparks flew, metal groaned, and the hatchling shivered violently. Rylan's hands were slick with sweat, his muscles straining, but finally the beam shifted enough. He carefully lifted the hatchling, cradling it against his chest. Its small body radiated warmth, faint but unmistakable, and its soft eyes locked onto his. "Don't worry, I've got you," he whispered. The words felt almost absurd in the void of the dead ship, but the hatchling twitched, responding with a tiny, almost human-like shiver. For a moment, Rylan allowed himself a small, quiet victory. He had saved it. The triumph was brief. A sudden shudder ran through the ship, throwing him off balance. Loose panels crashed around him, and a warning siren blared from somewhere deep inside. The engines, or what remained of them, were unstable. Rylan's heart pounded. "Not now," he muttered, adjusting the sling he'd fashioned from his tools to hold the hatchling. He ran toward the central corridor, flashlight beam cutting jagged shadows across scorched walls. The hatchling wriggled in his arms, letting out soft, rhythmic hums that somehow seemed reassuring. Rylan noted them, mentally cataloging the sound, the glow of its scales. He'd seen a lot of broken machines in his life, but never anything like this. Something about the creature suggested intelligence. It was more than instinct, it was awareness. A sudden metallic groan echoed through the hull. Rylan froze. Above him, the deck buckled and a section of railing collapsed into the void. He yanked the hatchling closer, sprinting, heart hammering. His fingers grazed the ship's terminal panels, sparks showering him, but he pressed on. Every step was calculated, every breath measured. He had to reach the bridge. If he could stabilize the ship or find the logs, he might learn why this hatchling was here. Why someone, or something, had left it to die. A small, almost imperceptible sound tickled the edge of his hearing, a clicking, deliberate, unnatural. Rylan's head snapped toward a side corridor. Shadows twisted in a way that didn't belong. He froze. The hatchling hissed softly, a sound that was both warning and plea. Something was moving inside the ship. Something alive. Something that didn't want him to leave. Rylan forced himself forward, ignoring the shiver crawling up his spine. He had choices now: fight, flee, or discover. He chose to move. The hatchling shifted in his arms, scales pressing into his chest, and for the first time Rylan felt the weight of responsibility, not just for himself but for this fragile, abandoned life. Then with a sudden violent jerk, the ship lurched. A fireball burst somewhere behind him, and the corridor ahead collapsed in a shower of sparks and twisted metal. Rylan dove to the side, the hatchling clutched tightly against him as a wave of debris slammed past. For a second time seemed to stop. And then, in the midst of chaos, a faint glow pulsed from the hatchling's chest, a strange light that seemed to push back the darkness itself. Rylan's breath caught. What had he just triggered? The ship groaned again, deeper this time, almost alive in its misery. He scrambled to his feet, eyes wide, and kept moving. Somewhere ahead, safety, or something worse, waited. And in that fleeting moment he realized the hatchling wasn't just injured. It was extraordinary. Something told him this was only the beginning. Ryland's boots echoed sharply against the scorched metal corridor as the derelict ship groaned behind him. The hatchling pressed close to his chest, its faint glow casting moving shadows across walls scarred by fire and impact. He didn't dare look back. Every instinct screamed that the ship could collapse entirely at any moment. Sparks rained from overhead conduits and smoke swirled thickly, stinging his eyes. Then he heard it, a metallic clatter from the side corridor. Sharp, deliberate, mechanical. His heart leaped. Someone, or something, was following. He froze, pressing the hatchling against him. Its wings twitched nervously, scales flickering. Ryland whispered, "It's okay, stay calm." The hatchling responded with a soft hum, a small pulse of warmth that seemed to reassure him even as his pulse raced. A pair of alien drones emerged from the shadows, sleek, spider-like machines with glowing red eyes and razor arms. They scanned the corridor, clicking as they moved, then locked onto him. Ryland had seen drones before, but never in this condition, malfunctioning and dangerous, yet still lethal. There was no room to think. He raised his improvised sling, holding the hatchling close, and darted sideways. Sparks flew as a drone's arms smashed a nearby panel. The hatchling squeaked, startled, and Ryland clenched his jaw. He could not afford to panic, not now. He sprinted through the debris, shoving fallen crates and scraps in the drone's path. One drone lunged, its claw grazing his shoulder. Pain shot through him, but adrenaline surged. He yanked a loose pipe from the wall, swung, and the drone skittered sideways, momentarily disabled. The hatchling bristled at the movement, its tiny claws scratching gently at his chest, but it remained calm enough to cling to him. Ryland realized something astonishing. It was learning, adapting to danger as fast as he was. The corridor twisted sharply, leading to a maintenance shaft. Ryland ducked through just as the drones fired small energy pulses. Sparks exploded around him. The hatchling shivered, but its glow intensified, a soft pulse that seemed almost intentional. Ryland wondered fleetingly, was it protecting him or warning him? He didn't have time to think. Every second mattered. He reached the central conduit and paused, listening. The drone's clicks had stopped. Silence returned, thick and heavy. Then a sound of groaning metal echoed from above. A deck was collapsing somewhere ahead. Ryland cursed and pushed forward, gripping the hatchling tighter. He remembered the makeshift sling he had fashioned and adjusted it, ensuring the creature was secure. Even in the chaos he kept his mind sharp. One wrong move and both of them would die. A smaller passage opened to the engineering section. Ryland dove inside and immediately found a panel of controls, partially intact. His mechanical mind kicked in. He flipped switches and twisted wires, improvising a temporary override to stabilize the corridor lights and oxygen flow. Sparks flew across the panel, but the effort worked. The corridor ahead lit faintly, enough to see the path. The hatchling hissed softly, wings fluttering. He smiled briefly, adrenaline mixing with relief. Small victories mattered. Then a loud metallic screech pierced the corridor. Ryland's stomach dropped. A drone had climbed the ventilation shaft and dropped onto the floor, blocking the exit. He froze, then quickly scanned his surroundings. Broken piping, a loose cable, a half-collapsed railing. Every scrap became a tool. He grabbed the cable, lassoing the drone's leg, yanking it sideways into a twisted crate. Sparks and smoke filled the air, and the drone screeched, its sensors briefly blinded. The hatchling let out a low hum, almost triumphant, and nuzzled him gently. Ryland didn't have time to enjoy it. The main engines of the ship groaned, a deep vibration that ran through the floor. The ship was coming apart faster than he had imagined. Panels shook loose from the walls and debris tumbled toward them. He grabbed the hatchling and ran for a maintenance ladder leading to the upper deck. Every step was a gamble. If he slipped, both of them would be crushed. As he climbed, he glimpsed something unexpected. The hatchling's glow reflected off a jagged crack in the ship's wall, revealing strange markings, ancient runes etched into metal, glowing faintly. They pulsed in sync with the hatchling's heartbeat. Ryland's breath caught. Questions surged. Who had put these here? Was the hatchling tied to the markings? He didn't have answers, but he felt the weight of importance settle on him. This was more than survival now. He reached the upper deck and skidded to a stop. The corridor opened to a collapsed control hub. Broken consoles sparked, and a thin fire burned along the edge of the wall. Ryland hesitated. Every instinct screamed danger, but ahead, A faint pathway led toward the ship's bridge. He could see it, the ultimate chance to stabilize the vessel, maybe uncover the hatchling's origin, and perhaps find a way off before the ship tore itself apart. Then, without warning, the hatchling flared its wings, small embers dancing along its glowing scales. Sparks shot from the walls as the fire reacted strangely to the creature. Ryland's jaw dropped. It had just altered the environment. The hatchling wasn't helpless. It was extraordinary. A shadow moved in the far corridor. Something larger than the drones, heavier, alive. Ryland tensed, holding the hatchling close. His pulse raced. He had survived the drones, improvised escape near-death traps, but this, whatever it was, felt different. Watching it slink closer, Ryland knew their journey was only beginning. He whispered, "Hold on, little one. We're not done yet." The creature responded with a low, resonant hum, echoing through the hollow metal corridors. And then, with a sharp creak from the ship's frame, a huge section of the upper deck collapsed, blocking the bridge corridor and leaving only one narrow path. Ryland's eyes widened. There was no turning back. The chase had only just begun. Ryland pressed forward down the narrow corridor, every step careful but fast. The hatchling clung to his chest, glowing softly, its tiny claws digging lightly into his jacket as if sensing his determination. The air was thick with smoke and metal dust. The ship groaned beneath them, warning that every second counted. Ahead he could see the faint glow of the bridge. That had to be the place to find answers. The narrow path opened into the control hub, a chaotic mess of shattered consoles and twisted metal. Sparks flew from broken wiring, and a faint alarm hummed somewhere in the distance. Ryland ducked under a falling pipe, setting the hatchling down carefully on a clear panel. Its eyes locked onto his. For a heartbeat he thought he saw something like recognition, or anticipation. He took a deep breath and reached for one of the intact terminals. The screen flickered, struggling to power up, but then a holographic interface blazed to life. Ryland's fingers moved over the controls, pulling up the ship's logs, scanning the fragments of data. His eyes widened as the story unfolded. This ship had carried illegal bioexperiments, experiments that involved cross-species genetics. Dragons were engineered here to survive in space environments. The hatchling was one of them. Ryland swallowed hard. It was supposed to be gone. All of them were supposed to be gone. Someone had left this one behind. The logs were fragmented, but he could piece together enough to understand the danger. Whoever had abandoned it didn't want anyone to know about it, or to find it alive. His heart pounded as he realized what he held in his arms. A living secret that powerful factions across the galaxy would kill to possess. Then the hatchling shivered and raised its small head toward him. Its glowing eyes seemed to focus, and suddenly, images and feelings washed over him. Not visually, not through sound, but inside his mind. Pain, fear, confusion, loneliness, and beneath it all an instinctive plea, "Help me." Ryland staggered, gripping his head. What are you doing?" he whispered aloud, though he already knew. The creature was trying to communicate, not with words but with thought. Telepathy, rudimentary but undeniable. He felt flashes of its memory, the ship, the experiments, the cages, the cold metal walls, the other hatchlings, all lost. Ryland's chest tightened. The sense of responsibility hit him like a hammer. This wasn't just survival anymore. This was rescue, protection, and justice. Ryland grabbed the hatchling carefully and turned toward the ship's secondary logs. As he scanned, the screens flickered violently. A loud metallic screech echoed from the corridor behind him. Alien drones, more than before, were advancing toward the control hub. They were smarter, faster, likely drawn by the hatchling's life signs. Ryland's mind raced. He had seconds to act. He ripped a loose conduit from the wall and jammed it into the nearest drone's sensors, sparks exploding across the floor. The hatchling hissed, a sound sharp and low, almost like a warning. Ryland realized it wasn't just frightened, it was aware. Every pulse of light from its scales now seemed synchronized with his movements, anticipating danger. They were beginning to work together instinctively. Ryland glanced at the data drives he had spotted earlier in the bridge. If he could retrieve them, he might not only save the hatchling, but also preserve proof of the experiments. Proof that could expose whoever had done this. He sprinted toward the drives, the hatchling clinging tightly. Drones swarmed, claws snapping, energy pulses streaking the air. Ryland ducked and weaved, improvising barricades with fallen panels and debris. Each move counted. Hesitation would mean death. He reached the drives and yanked them free, shoving them into his jacket. A drone lunged from above, slashing downward. Ryland barely rolled aside, the blade grazing his shoulder, tearing fabric but leaving flesh intact. He winced, pain sharp but adrenaline surged. Behind him, the hatchling flared its wings, glowing brighter, emitting a soft, piercing hum. The sound vibrated through the room, short-circuiting the drones for a moment, an instinctive act that bought them time. Rylan froze for a moment, staring at the creature. It was more than a hatchling. It was smart, responsive, and dangerous in ways he could not yet comprehend. Yet it trusted him. And now he trusted it. Together they could survive this, if only barely. A sudden shudder ran through the ship. The walls buckled and panels fell like rain. Rylan had a choice: stay and finish scanning the logs to uncover more secrets, or move now before the entire control hub collapsed. Every instinct screamed to leave. But then, images flashed in his mind from the hatchling. The other hatchlings, the experiments, the faces of those who had suffered. Responsibility surged. He could not abandon the truth, and he could not abandon this creature. He made a decision. With careful precision, he grabbed the drives, hoisted the hatchling into his sling, and sprinted toward the maintenance ladder leading to the upper corridors. The ship groaned, alarms screamed weakly, and the corridor ahead began to crumble. Sparks exploded around him, smoke thickened, but he didn't stop. Every step was a risk, every movement a gamble, but the hatchling's presence gave him focus, a shared determination to survive. Then, just as he reached the ladder, the ship convulsed violently. A massive section of the upper deck tore loose, revealing a hollow void behind it. Debris rained down, and the hatchling screeched, wings flaring instinctively. Rylan froze for a fraction of a second, then lunged, catching it just before it fell into the dark emptiness. His chest heaved, adrenaline pumping. He looked down at the hatchling. Its glow pulsed against his jacket, steady now, reassuring. For a moment he allowed himself to feel hope. They had survived. They had the evidence. And together they had unlocked a secret that could change everything. Then he heard it, a deep, resonant hum from the bow of the ship, low and powerful. Something large. Something alive. And it was coming for them. Rylan's jaw tightened. Whatever this was, it was far bigger than drones. Far bigger than the hatchling. And he had no idea if they could survive it. But he had to try. Rylan's boots skidded on loose debris as he reached the upper corridor. The hatchling's glow pulsed in his arms, casting flickering light across the crumpled metal around them. The ship groaned like a living creature in pain. Every step forward felt like running on a collapsing spine. Ahead, he could see the shuttle bay, a small, battered escape pod waiting like a fragile promise in the void. The hum from the bow had grown into a deep, resonant vibration. Something massive was moving through the derelict ship, something alive, something not human. Rylan tightened his grip on the hatchling, its tiny claws pressing against his chest. Its eyes flickered between fear and focus, and for a moment he thought he saw understanding there. It knew the danger. It trusted him. That trust was a weight he could not betray. A shadow darted across the far corridor, followed by the sharp, clicking sound of metal scraping metal. The drones from before had regrouped, more numerous, and the hum suggested something even bigger was behind them. He had seconds. Every instinct screamed, act fast or die. He sprinted, weaving through the debris. Sparks exploded around him and smoke thickened, making the hatchling squirm nervously in his arms. Rylan muttered, "Hold on. I've got you." The creature responded with a soft, steady hum, a beat in sync with his racing heart. Somehow, its glow seemed to cut through the chaos, illuminating his path. They reached a partially collapsed hatch. Rylan paused. The shuttle bay was visible beyond, but debris blocked the main path. The hum grew louder, vibrating through the floor. He realized the massive presence was using the ship's structure itself, moving with terrifying strength. Rylan's mind raced. There was only one choice: create his own path, improvise and trust the hatchling. He ripped a section of railing free, swinging it like a battering ram at a pile of broken panels. Sparks flew as metal twisted, falling with deafening crashes. The hatchling hissed sharply, wings flaring instinctively, flames flicking from its tiny mouth in short bursts. The heat ignited a small stack of debris, creating a momentary barrier between them and the advancing drones. Rylan's heart jumped. They had a chance, brief but enough. He continued toward the shuttle bay, ducking under twisted pipes and avoiding sparks that hissed when they touched the hatchling's wings. A drone lunged from the ceiling, claws extended. Rylan rolled, hitting the ground hard, and swung the hatchling just out of harm's way. Its light shimmered brightly as if reacting to the danger, illuminating weak points in the collapsing walls. He realized with a jolt that it wasn't just reacting, it was guiding him. The main hatch to the shuttle bay loomed ahead. Rylan lunged, shoving debris aside, but the ship groaned violently. Metal twisted beneath their feet, and a section of the ceiling began to collapse. The hatchling squeaked, wings flaring, flames flickering in the small, confined space. Without thinking, Rylan grabbed a loose cable, lashing it to a broken railing and yanking it across the falling debris, holding it in place just long enough to slide through. Sparks showered around them, but they cleared. Small victory. Inside the shuttle, the control panel flickered weakly. Rylan placed the hatchling carefully on the seat, adjusting the sling to secure it. Its glow bathed the small pod in soft, pulsing light. He slid into the pilot's seat, hands shaking but steadying quickly. He inserted the data drives into the interface, fingers flying over the controls. Engines sputtered to life. The shuttle trembled, metal groaning around them. Then the massive presence made itself known. A shadowy form surged into the open bay, an alien creature easily the size of the shuttle itself, with claws raking metal and eyes that burned like molten metal. Rylan's stomach dropped. There was no chance of fighting it directly. Survival depended on speed, ingenuity, and trust. He engaged the thrusters. The shuttle jolted violently as the hatchling flared its wings, flames igniting along the hull in a strange interaction with the failing power conduits. Sparks arced and scattered. The creature shrieked, hurling itself toward them, but the hatchling's glow intensified, illuminating weak points in the bay wall. Rylan maneuvered the shuttle with precision, dodging falling debris and the alien's swiping claws. The shuttle cleared the bay just as the ship convulsed violently. Sections tore away, sparks flying like meteor showers. Rylan's heart pounded, sweat stinging his eyes, but he didn't falter. The hatchling chirped softly, small claws brushing his arm, a reminder that they were alive together. Its glow pulsed in rhythm with the shuttle's vibrations, guiding him through a path no human alone could have found. Outside, the void stretched endlessly. Rylan engaged full thrusters, escaping the ship just before it imploded, a roaring fireball trailing behind. He exhaled, chest heaving as the hatchling chirped softly, wings fluttering in relief. For a moment they were safe. But the hum lingered. Somewhere beyond the wreckage, something massive had survived. Something that knew the hatchling was alive. Rylan's hands clenched the controls. He realized this was not just a rescue mission. This was the beginning of something far bigger. He had survived impossible odds through courage, quick thinking, and trust, and he knew it would take everything he had to protect this extraordinary creature. He looked down at the hatchling. Its glowing eyes met his, intelligent and unafraid. "We're not done," he whispered. The creature hummed in response, almost as if agreeing. And then a faint pulse of light from the shuttle's interface revealed another signal, a distant, alien beacon activating somewhere in the stars. Rylan swallowed hard. The galaxy was watching, and whatever came next would be far more dangerous than anything they had faced so far. But he was ready. They were ready. Rylan guided the shuttle through the quiet void, the wrecked cargo ship shrinking behind them. The hatchling, now calm in his arms, glowed softly, its scales reflecting the stars outside. For the first time since this nightmare began, Rylan allowed himself a moment to breathe. The hum of the engines filled the small cockpit, steady and reassuring. He looked down at the creature. "You did good," he whispered. The hatchling tilted its head, small wings fluttering, eyes bright with trust. They drifted toward a remote, habitable planet, a small blue and green orb promising safety. The shuttle's interface displayed minimal life support readings, but nothing critical. The storm of danger, drones, collapsing corridors, alien threats, felt miles away. And yet Rylan knew better. Somewhere out there, someone or something was hunting this creature. Whoever abandoned it didn't intend for it to survive. Whoever created it might want it back, or worse. He landed the shuttle on a flat plateau surrounded by jagged cliffs. Dust and small stones kicked up as the thrusters settled, and Rylan exhaled, muscles trembling. He set the hatchling down gently, watching it scurry to higher ground, wings flaring with small bursts of flame as it explored its new surroundings. The sight made his chest tighten. This fragile, abandoned life had survived against impossible odds, because of him. And that mattered. Rylan leaned against the shuttle, scanning the horizon. The planet was quiet, eerily beautiful. But silence was deceptive. He felt a pulse in the hatchling, a faint thrum that seemed to resonate beyond simple biology. It had survived harsh experiments, a collapsing ship and alien drones. Whatever it was, it had potential, powerful, unusual, and not fully understood. His mind raced with questions. Could it communicate more? Could it defend itself, or him, If the galaxy came calling? The hatchling chirped softly, nudging Ryland's hand. It wanted attention, comfort, reassurance. He crouched and scratched behind its tiny ears, feeling the warmth of its scales under his fingertips. "You're safe, for now," he murmured. Yet deep down he knew safety was temporary. The galaxy was larger than any human or dragon hatchling. Danger would find them again. And when it did, they would have to be ready. Ryland retrieved the data drives from his jacket. Their contents were fragmented but valuable. Records of the ship's experiments, genetic logs, and partial transmissions. This was proof that could expose the shadowy factions responsible for creating the hatchling. If he survived long enough to deliver it, maybe the truth could reach someone willing to act. The weight of responsibility pressed on him, heavier than the hatchling in his arms. But he didn't falter. He had faced impossible odds before and survived. He could do it again. As he stood, the hatchling suddenly shivered and its glow intensified. Ryland froze. The pulse from the creature seemed to resonate with the planet itself. Something was happening, something he didn't yet understand. Then a faint signal echoed from beyond the horizon, almost imperceptible but unmistakable. A pulse, a beacon. Alien in origin. Waiting. Watching. Ryland's stomach tightened. The signal was subtle but it carried weight. Whoever, or whatever, was responsible for the hatchling's existence was still out there. They hadn't given up. And the galaxy was about to remind him just how small one human could feel in the face of such power. But Ryland didn't waver. He straightened his shoulders and looked down at the hatchling. It chirped again, a sound almost like encouragement, and nudged him toward the shuttle. Together they moved across the plateau. Ryland kept one hand on the data drives, the other gently guiding the hatchling. Every sense was alert, every instinct engaged. The quiet planet might be a temporary haven, but the next challenge was coming, and he would meet it head-on. Humans survived not because the odds were easy, but because they refused to yield, even against impossible threats. That thought steadied him, even as the alien pulse thrummed faintly in the distance. The hatchling paused at the edge of a cliff, wings half spread, its glow reflecting against the jagged rocks. Ryland knelt beside it, feeling a surge of pride and protectiveness. This creature had endured suffering, fear, and abandonment, and now it trusted him. In that trust he found courage. In that connection he found hope. He whispered, "We're going to be ready." The hatchling chirped, small flames flickering along its wings, a living affirmation. Ryland scanned the skies, noting faint movement in the stars, signals, distant shapes, and possibilities he couldn't yet interpret. Whoever had left the hatchling behind, whoever pursued it, they were out there. And soon they would arrive. He tightened his grip on the data drives, heart steady, mind sharp. He was ready to fight, to protect, to endure. The galaxy would see what a human could do. The sun dipped behind jagged cliffs, casting long shadows across the plateau. Ryland stood tall, the hatchling at his side, and felt a strange calm settle over him. For the first time in days he allowed himself to consider the future. Not just survival but purpose. The hatchling's presence had changed him. Together they were more than a mechanic and a creature. They were a team. And the galaxy would not forget them. Then just as night fell, the faint pulse returned, stronger this time. Somewhere in the stars, a new threat had awakened. Ryland glanced at the hatchling. Its glow flared in recognition. He smiled grimly. "I guess the adventure isn't over." He lifted the hatchling into his arms, glancing at the distant signal. The stars waited. The galaxy waited. And so would he. Whatever came next, he and the hatchling would face it together.